Let's now talk about Chinese and Western medical thought, values, and disease causation. As a practical matter, medical scientists and researchers need to convey their findings on disease causation to healthcare and health policy managers who make decisions on allocation of resources to prevent and treat the disease in the communities that they manage. Multi-causality models of disease are inadequate for this purpose. This may account for the appeal of the etiological standpoint to medical scientists, despite its inadequacies. Despite its inadequacies, a scientist need only to identify one cause for each disease and are spared the trouble of dealing with multiple and often mutually interacting causes. With multi-causality models, the scientific researchers need to exercise judgment as to which factors to include in the causal model for statistical investigation. To the extent that the values come into play in these judgments, the identification of causes is value laden. In practice, there are numerous candidates for causal factors, but as Nagel points out, the interest of the scientist determines what he selects for investigation. Different choices of factors lead to different causal pies. The term value here and the manner that some philosophical discussions on the notion of science being value laden have used it. Some may prefer to use interest instead of value, as Nagel does in the above quote. We shall continue to refer to value with the caveat that it has a different meaning from its other uses, such as moral values. Take our earlier tuberculosis example. Great strides in eradicating the disease have been made since Koch's discovery of the tubercle bacillus, but the disease has not been stamped out. In many parts of the world, its incidence is in fact increasing with mutations to strains of the bacillus that are resistant to antibiotics like streptomycin and rifampicin, commonly used for the treatment of the disease. The pharmacologist developing vaccines against the tubercle bacillus and antibiotics to kill it understandably regards the disease as being caused by a bacterium, as this would be consistent with his mission of creating agents to fight the bacillus and the value he therefore places on discovering new antibiotics. But to the epidemiologist working in poor countries where tuberculosis is still a serious killer, the cause of tuberculosis may not be the bacillus, but rather the stresses of overwork, poor diet, and unhealthy sanitary conditions. This provides the basis for the bacillus to spread and take hold in the human body. Thousands in Asia and Africa die of the disease for very much the same reason that John Keats and Jane Austen are thought to have contracted the disease: poor nutrition and unhealthy living habits and conditions. Knowledge about the kind of the tubercle bacillus associated with fresh outbreaks of tuberculosis in some regions of the world is of limited value for controlling the spread of the disease, although it might lead to cures for those who have succumbed to it and are fortunate enough to receive treatment with antibiotics. Knowledge of the dietary factors and sanitary conditions that are associated with it, which may be obtained from epidemiological studies that include these factors in the causal pie, guides healthcare providers to determine optimal health expenditure plans. Thus, one can make the argument that effectiveness for achieving medical objectives would guide the researcher in the inclusion of components in the causal pie. This value medical efficacy value favors research programs that focus on causes of illness that can in practice be addressed by public health policy. A similar line of reasoning applies to TCM notions of causality in illnesses, which is focused on those factors that a person can manage in order to avoid falling ill. Thank you for your attention.